Good morning, everybody. I hope you're keeping well. We had a good night last night. Those who were there on our midweek with Steve, we managed to get through, and we heard a lot about what's been going on in Selma in the last year. So it was good to be there and be involved with that. Just to remind you, we are having a collection for Storehouse this Saturday morning, 10 till 12. If you want to drop things down to the church, then there'll be somebody there to collect those and keep them. Just to say, there are details of what Storehouse particularly need on the Facebook page. But if you want a list of that, please do get in touch with me and I will make that available to you. And then Sunday morning at 11 o'clock again for our Sunday service, which God willing will be the last solely live streamed service. So after that, on Easter weekend, we will be back together for worship, for those who feel they can. Also, our Holy Week prayer times, 7:30 on Zoom. The link is in the newsletter, which is probably going out today or at least tomorrow. And it's also on the Facebook page as well. So if you would like to be part of those Zoom prayer times with Conleague, Lisnabreen, St Andrews, 7:30, Monday to Thursday, and it'll be a good time spent with one another and praying together for and with each other. We're going to read this morning from Mark chapter 14 and verses 66 to 72. And this is perhaps one of the most heartbreaking and tragic moments in the whole story for many of us. And as Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came. And seeing Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said, "You also were with the Nazarene, Jesus." But he denied it, saying, "I neither know nor understand what you mean." And he went out into the gateway. The rooster crowed. And the servant girl saw him and began again to say to the bystanders, "This man is one of them." But again he denied it. After a little while, the bystanders again said to Peter, "Certainly you are one of them, because you're a Galilean." But he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, "I do not know this man of whom you speak." And immediately the rooster crowed a second time. And Peter remembered how Jesus had said to him, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and wept. I remember going to watch the movie Titanic in the cinema when it first came out back in, 1997 or whenever it was. And you went to watch this film, and I think everybody who watched the film, or at least the first, whatever it was, hour and a half, 2 hours of the film, they knew exactly what was coming. And yet when it happened and it was depicted there in front of you on the screen, it was still hugely harrowing to see, and a hugely emotional experience to see this take place before your eyes. It's a little bit like that with the Peter story. We all know this moment is coming if we know the story at all. But every time we read it again, it's hard going. It hits us emotionally in all sorts of ways. It's hard going because Peter was so close to Jesus. And it's horrible to think that someone so close to Jesus can fall so far. J.C. Ryle talks about this and does it in wonderful language to get the point across. He says this about Peter. He was one who had enjoyed special privileges and had special mercies shown to him. Yet here we see this same Simon Peter so entirely overcome by fear that he actually denies his Lord. He declares that he knows not him whom he had accompanied and lived with for 3 years. He declares that he knows not him who had healed his own wife's mother, taken him up into the Mount of Transfiguration, and saved him from drowning in the Sea of Galilee. And he not only denies his master once, but does it 3 times. And he not only denies him simply, but he does it cursing and swearing. And above all, he does all this in the face of the plainest warnings and in spite of his own loud protestations that he would do nothing of the kind, but rather die. Someone so close, someone who had seen so much, experienced so much, and yet he falls so far and so hard and so fast from promising to die with Jesus to loudly and with curses denying him. It's hard to watch, but it's necessary to watch because it's a reality. It's hard to watch, I think, certainly for me, because I see myself in Peter, and I think we all see ourselves in Peter, and I think that's the intention of Mark and probably the other gospel writers as well, that Peter is us in these stories, in these gospels. And we see ourselves in Peter because we recognize in Peter someone who wants to follow Jesus, someone who loves Jesus, someone who knows who Jesus is and how special he is, how unique he is, how important he is, and yet still fails him. And that's us. We want to follow, we love him, we know how special, we know he's unique, we know he's the Christ, the Son of the living God, but we still fail him. Our thoughts, our attitudes, and our actions deny him. And what can we do? Well, the first thing we can do is actually what Peter did, what he did first. He went and wept. What we can do is grieve for our sin and our failure. Not all tears are bad tears. Not all sorrow is futile. Grief and sorrow over sin are the first steps to repentance and to restoration. That's true for Peter, and it should be true for us as well. If we feel the depth and the weight of our sin, that's not a bad thing, as long as it drives us back into the arms of Jesus, who will welcome us and accept us and forgive us. God bless.